is while listening to a very informative lecture, I would like to ask some devil's advocates questions. Number one, non-Hindu complained about assimilation of Hindu octopus by Hindu octopus, number one. Number two, they say, while you're talking the philosophy is good, but your social system is so indiscriminate and inhuman. Number three, if it is a sacrifice, what is the sacrifice of Bali in the Yajna? And they claim that Hindu, before the Shankaracharya, Hindu used to eat meat. It's compulsory after the Shraddha. Can be Hindu reject karma and punarjanma theory and image worship and being Hindu?
Okay, so I'll have to first remember which one is which question. What was the first one? Octopus. So Hindus also assimilate. There is in chapter 4, I've described Hindu acculturation contrasted with Western digestion. I explain that. I explain the Hindu acculturation contrasted with Western digestion. The difference is illustrated when a lot of Hindus and Buddhist thought got exported to China, Japan, Southeast Asia. There was no invading army imposing it. Those guys brought it in. They sent their students, like we send students to Harvard to bring back knowledge. It was not imposed on them. There was never an attempt, when India was very strong and powerful compared to these other Asian countries, there was never an attempt to install a governor and collect taxes from them, like the Westerners did. So the circumstances under which the knowledge was exported, the culture was exported, was not power-oriented. Historically, the West did that for power-oriented. Expansion of Christianity, Islam, all with the sword. The Hindu did not try to change the history of the Chinese, even when the whole Chinese became Buddhists and they looked at India as the mother civilization, or Japan or Mongolia or any of them. The Hindu did not impose their language, replace Mandarin, give them a new sense of history, install viceroys. So it was very different than the spread of Western universalism and the spread of Islamic universalism, where it was control oriented, change the language, change the history, make them point to Makkah, that kind of thing. We never said point to Banaras and all those things, never did that. So the Hindu octopus which assimilates has had a different characteristic. It is more like, I'll assimilate you, but once you've been assimilated, you will retain your identity as part of me. It's kind of like that. So, in fact, I would say there is an opposite criticism. Opposite criticism is we assimilate the guy and we let him be his own jati. Rather than saying now you no longer have to have the jati. It works both ways. If you assimilate the Western way and you eliminate his distinctiveness, in a sense you've destroyed that distinctiveness, but in a sense you've also destroyed the basis for prejudice against him. You see. So whereas in our case we've said you can join, you can not join, you can retain your identity, you can call a new identity, but we're not imposing a one uniform thing on you. So this is my response to the first issue. Second issue is a big difference between the ideal and the lived reality of society. This is very true. This is true of all cultures. You might not, well, we know about the history of Christian slavery and all the way. We know the history of what happened to the Native Americans. The Pope sanctified killing them, genociding them because they were not considered proper human beings, even the Native Americans. So we know that this difference between ideal and lived reality is there in every culture, and the importance of prosperity and material mobility in this, because those who are prosperous can afford more mobility and better lifestyle for everybody. And when you have a small pie being fought for by a lot of people, then you have more exploitation opportunity. And you might think that even in Islam has no racism and prejudice and caste system, but what Islam does. Islam has the Ashraf. You should search Ashraf, Ashraf, and Ajlaf. The Ashraf are said to be those Muslims in the Indian subcontinent who came from Arab, Persian or Turkish origins. And the Ajlaf are those Indians who got converted to Islam. That's a racist, caste-oriented. And the Ashraf, which is the upper caste, are further divided into 4 categories. The highest Ashraf are Saids, who are only those people can be Saids who are direct descendants of the Prophet. Direct descendants of the Prophet. I once had a debate with a Muslim guy, and he raised caste, and his name happened to be Said. So I said, you claim to be direct descendant of the Prophet. And he knew what I'm after. He said, I said, that's Ashraf. He quickly said, we don't want to talk about all these things, change the subject. Because usually they don't expect a Hindu to know these things. So the highest caste of Ashraf are Saids. Second highest are Sheikh. Sheikh is any Arab, not necessarily descendant from, Prophet, but Arab. Then is Turk, the Turkish. And then is Pashtun, the Iranians. These are the 4 top castes of Muslims in the Indian subcontinent. If you want to read more about it, there's a guy called Ahmad, I've forgotten his first name, who wrote the Islamic caste system. He was a JNU professor, and the Muslims didn't like, because he was exposing all this. And he was even giving statistics that 70, 80, 90% of all the reservations for top jobs, governor and all these prestigious jobs for Muslims, have been given to the Ashraf Muslims. And the lower caste Muslims are not being given their fair share, even though they are 80, 90% of the population. They have 10, 20% of the reservations. And all these are Shabana Azmi and her husband, all these guys, big fighting human rights, they're all Ashraf. Yeah, okay. So this is the Ashrafization of Islam in India. That is a topic which is taboo. You will not get a job if you write a PhD on this, or you go to some conference and submit a paper. They'll throw you out. They don't want to hear these things. But this is true. So I'm not defending. We can't defend ourselves by saying everybody has got the same problem. If I have a disease, it doesn't mean that you have it too. It helps me. We have to solve our problem. But we have to realize that human culture, human civilization is far from perfect in its ancient sense. We have to progress, advance, clean up our act. Others have to do their own cleaning up of their act. We are not a perfect civilization in terms of how we have implemented it. And nobody, no Hindu rishi has claimed that we have ever had certainly in the Kali Yuga, that we've had a society where everybody is enlightened and everybody is sattvic. I mean, the whole idea is that there's tamasic people, there's rajasic people, and they all have to be helped and moved up. So human culture and human society also reflects the different grades and different qualities of individual guna that exist, and we have our share of problems because of that, as do others. So that is this one. What was the next one? Yeah. Okay. We've had, the thing about Hinduism is, you will find something or other in a text or in a practice of every kind there is. In every practice that anybody has done in the world, you will find something or other in Hinduism also. And this is because Hinduism, like an encyclopedia, keeps adding new knowledge without expunging, eradicating, eliminating old knowledge. There's a difference between knowledge accumulating into encyclopedia. The first Encyclopedia Britannica in the 1700s, I am told, was 3 volumes, and then it kept knowledge. So you add more knowledge. So this is the Hindu approach. Open architecture, like you keep adding apps on Apple, you keep adding more and more apps. There's no requirement that you have to get the 10 perfect apps and eliminate all of them, the rest of them. Whereas the Western system is purgative, it is purging also. So in our system, we have no central authority that is required to purge. We believe that human consciousness is at all levels, from very useless, bad type to all very advanced human consciousness, because the divine has manifested and is evolving. So you will find people at all these levels. And you will find mention of all these practices, and you will probably find some weird guy somewhere doing it also. You'll go to Nepal and they're doing some sacrifice, some goat sacrifice, whatever they're doing. So Hinduism has many, many beliefs, many, many ideas, sanctified or not sanctified. Some are practiced but not interpreted. That is very true. The situation is very different in a centrally controlled, canonized, standardized, one book, one history approach. You see, if I'm having problems in my family, because I've made rules and regulations and bylaws which say this is how we will do things, I have made it official policy that that's how things are going to be, then that kind of problem as a result of that is of a certain kind. In your family, you haven't made any such thing. You've given people a lot of freedom, and a lot of people are doing some things, different things, and some of them are doing bad things also. You too have the problem, but I cannot say it's the same kind as mine. This is a very different problem. So that is my view on that. And the final question?
Can the person be a Hindu while rejecting the karma?
Okay, this is a very interesting question. This is a very interesting question. The Hinduism is basically a self-realization rather than God realization. Therefore, when I start a discussion with people, they say, prove God. I say, I'm not even here to prove God. My starting point is not, is there a God, and why, which God, and who created, could he exist, and what not. That is the way the Abrahamic traditions start the discussion on religion. They started on God. Chapter 1 is always on God. And I start with, who am I? And so I ask the person in the audience, do you have doubt that you exist? And nobody wants to doubt that he exists. So at least we got one thing going, that some kind of I exists. The question is, who is this I? The only question is, who is this I? But there is no doubt that there is some kind of I. So at least I have a common ground with the audience when I start with self-realization, inquiry, rather than God realization, inquiry. It's very different. So when we talk about self-realization, then the discoveries made by rishis who attempted different techniques of meditation. Some did neti, and they argued and reasoned, this, not that. Some did, vipassana, some did tantra, some did whatever. The various systems of meditation were experimented. The way scientists in a laboratory experiment different things, and then what they discover they share with other scientists, and he tries it also, and if he validates it, he also likes it, and then it keeps getting transmitted to the next generation. And whatever doesn't work, people go reject it or abandon it and try something else. So it's this way, experiential, experimental self-discovery is the quintessential Hinduism. What you discover is valid as your truth. If you discover a way of higher consciousness, whether it is taught by somebody to you or you just discover it yourself, and that gives you anand, and you get that feeling of Satchitanand, then whether you believed in X or not believed in X makes no difference. So you do not have to believe in anything. If you can practice a path of self-enlightenment for which there is Raj Yoga, which actually says that all texts, all beliefs, all ideas, all philosophies are provisional and only good up to a point. You can believe them, you can use them like a raft to cross the river, then you abandon it and go beyond, and you don't carry that raft on your head after you cross the river. So you have to abandon all these ideas, all the concepts, these ideas we were talking about are provisional, they get you past the stage. If you don't need that, you don't have to have it. So our faith even gives you that much individual freedom that there is no belief that you must hang on to. Your idea in this world is to achieve a state of higher being, higher consciousness, however it works for you. Now these ideas work for a lot of people. It guides them in the right way. It avoids them certain problems. It gives them a certain sense of coherence about the world. It gives them a sense of explanation and logic to the world, and it works for them. But many rishis did not have any such starting assumption or axiom, and they did just fine. So Hinduism does not box you into even these articles.